Okay, so welcome back for week 2 of FTH 212. So for school reasons, I'm going to show my face real quick. So, hi. Okay, so the 6 parts that I have chosen are going to be as follows. We have the slide, the firing pin, the locking block, the extractor with the detent and spring, the trigger bar, and the trigger spring. So, the trigger bar and the trigger spring, this whole set is purely responsible for the firing portion of the cycle of operations. The trigger bar links the trigger through the trigger spring and the crucible to the firing pin. The front of the crucible will interact with the sear, and that's what actually holds the firing pin back and allows it to be fired when you pull the trigger. The firing pin is once again solely for the firing part of the cycle of operations. Its sole purpose is to travel forward, strike the firing pin, causing the ignition. The locking block here, this does not have a portion in the cycle of operations. I guess you could say it's part of the locking cycle, but it would be separate from the locking of the barrel into the slide. This is purely here to lock the slide to the frame. The extractor is here as a extraction part of the cycle of operations. When the round's been fired and the slide starts its rearward travel, this hook is what will engage on the rim of the cartridge, extracting it out of the chamber. So, if you'll forgive me, I'm going to look at my notes. This is a long assignment, so please forgive me. Okay, so with failures, with locking block, there's not going to be very many failures that can occur. That's just a simple piece of iron. We'll put that off to the side. With your extractor, the failures that can occur are geometry problems due to wear and use, as well as spring problems. Those are going to be the more common ones, where you're not getting a consistent grab on the rim of the cartridge. For the firing pin, with general use and wear and tear, the spring will give out over time, and the nose of the firing pin itself, the actual part that strikes the primer, that can become worn down over time as well. So that can be remedied with a new firing pin and or spring. For the trigger component here, the trigger bar, the crucible, the trigger spring, all that can actually be, for the most part, pretty easy to take care of. The trigger spring will wear out over time, and these parts being plastic, you may see some wear in them, but that's going to be tens of thousands of rounds down the line. So with the slide, this is responsible for your locking portion, your extracting, your feeding. This in conjunction with your operating guide rod are going to be what actually causes the slide to move back and forth, and then the gas pressures are going to cause your extractor to initiate pulling the chamber out of the cartridge, and then your ejector here will take over and kick the round out. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and cut this video, I will reassemble the firearm and we'll be back. Okay, and we're back. So once again, going to be checking over my notes. So now that we have the firearm back together, we will start off by first showing that it is in fact clear and safe. So one of the components that I would like to highlight would be the sights. Gunsmiths, I believe, should have extensive training in their field due to the fact that something as simple as a sight, you can see videos on YouTube how to do it. And yes, you can do it with a punch and a hammer, but it is not the preferred method. As we're always taught, there's a right tool for every method. And even using a proper sight pusher, if you don't know how to use it correctly, they can bind up and you can ruin the sight, you can ruin the tool, and those can be expensive. So I believe that for something like that, if somebody were to come into my shop and ask for new sights, it's only going to take me a matter of time to actually do it. It's not about the time, it's about the fact that I have the tools and the knowledge to do it correctly and right the first time for that customer. That's where I believe my value as a gunsmith comes in. So with that, we are going to, utilizing snap caps, go through a quick functions check, and we're going to talk through the cycle of operations. So first thing we're going to do, already cleared the weapon, clear it again, is check the pull. We have good trigger pull. Okay, so our dry check, so far everything seems to be working fine. Now we'll go in. I like to dump the mag on this one. Check ejection. So what's happening here is the magazine is the loading portion of this cycle, or sorry, feeding. The firearm's been fed. Now we cock it, it pops up the round, we chamber the round. Now it's locked. Once the trigger's been fired, it unlocks, it extracts, it ejects, it recocks, and the process starts over again. And there's your basic cycle of operation in a semi-automatic handgun.